Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth Blockchain Series 2020 event. I'm Julian Gordon, the Asia Pacific VP for Hyperledger, and I'm delighted to be invited to start this event today. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the Hyperledger India Chapter volunteers for organizing this series. They've done a great job, so thank you on behalf of the community. So far in this series, we've had some amazing stories from all perspectives, technical, non-technical, from large companies, SMEs, non-profits, and startups. It has been a wonderful success, and thank you to all the speakers. And of course, a big thank you to you, the attendees today, and those who will watch this later on Hyperledger's YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time. And as I said on the first Blockchain Stories event, you are all welcome to get involved in the community. Absolutely everyone is welcome. So, to today, we have a great speaker lineup, and as you can see on the slide, we have 5 today. I would particularly like to pick out 2 speakers whose companies are Hyperledger members and part of what makes this possible. Both are well recognized on the global stage. So that's Rajesh from Tech Mahindra and Makoto-san from Soramitsu. So now I'm going to introduce you to the first speaker, and that is Makoto-san from Soramitsu. Soramitsu are one of the contributors, one of the key contributors at Hyperledger. They contributed the Iroha, which is one of the key DLTs, and I've done some amazing work. And as I think I was just talking to Makoto-san, I've had many people talk about, particularly about what he's done at the National Bank of Cambodia. So I'm going to hand over to you, Makoto-san, now, and thank you for presenting today.
Yeah, thanks. It's quite an honor to be a part of this event hosted by the Indian chapter of Hyperledger. Let me share my screen. Everything is fine, right, with the slides?
Looking good.
Assume that it's good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the blockchain frameworks in Hyperledger called Hyperledger Iroha. And this is one that we have been contributing to and maintaining for the last, well, it's been close to 4 years. Not quite 4 years, but it's getting closer. Later this year, it will be 4 years. And I'm going to mainly focus on our work with the Central Bank of Cambodia on a retail payment system. And so that's why it says Hyperledger Iroha for systemically important payment systems as the title. Myself, I'm a naturalized Japanese. That's why I have a Japanese name. I've been in Japan for well, more than 10 years. And I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Soramitsu. So, and I'm a computer scientist by background and training. I grew up in California, and then after graduation with my master's, I moved to Japan. And my company Soramitsu, I've co-founded with 2 other people back in 2016, and now we're a little more than 70 people, and we have people in many countries actually all around the world. Not in India yet, but it's always a place I wanted to go to. We were one of the contributors of Hyperledger Iroha to the Hyperledger project, and we mainly use Iroha for our different applications. We don't only use Iroha, but it's been the main platform that we use. And so I'll talk a little bit about our work today with the National Bank of Cambodia, and that'll be the main focus of this talk. But we've done lots of other work over the last few years. We've worked on a interledger interoperability platform called D3 Ledger, which is also open source and Apache 2 license, where we built a bridge between Hyperledger Iroha and the Ethereum blockchain, and between Iroha and Bitcoin. This is something that's, I think, a very interesting technology in itself. We've also done quite a lot of work on kind of a public crypto asset called Sora. So this is using Hyperledger Iroha technology and the bridge that we built to Ethereum to create like a multi-platform token, which is actually a very interesting project in itself. It's meant to be a decentralized economic system where it's like a DAO. People vote on the blockchain to allocate new tokens to different projects. So it's kind of an interesting project that we do. We've also done a lot of work with identity, and we published a paper called Sora Identity at a IEEE conference, and we worked with the Bank Central Asia in Indonesia on a prototype or proof of concept for an identity system based on decentralized identifiers and verifiable claims using Hyperledger Iroha. Finally, we've done a lot of other work, for example, with the Web3 Foundation on Polkadot, and then also Filecoin to build the C++ runtime environment for Filecoin. So we've done quite a lot of blockchain development at this point. So I think what I'll mainly focus on is our work in this Central Bank of Cambodia, which is kind of like a form of a central bank digital currency. It's a retail payment system that the central bank runs, which is kind of a new thing for central banks, but actually lots of central banks are talking about this. So, China wants to launch their own digital currency. Sweden is doing work on the e-Krona project. Turkey has talked about things. Ukraine finished a pilot last year with the Rivna project. Many central banks, even there's even been reports of India talking about creating a sovereign digital currency. So lots of people are talking about systems like this, but actually very few have deployed them for a variety of reasons. So I'll talk a little bit about one that is deployed. This is called Project Bakwang, and it's actually the world's first retail payment system run by a central bank that uses blockchain technology. And currently there's more than 10,000 users, and I think there's actually 14 financial institutions that are members today, but it's still technically in pilot phase. So the goal of this system is to really make it so that anyone with a Cambodian phone number can send and receive money between each other. In Cambodia, according to a World Bank report, only 22% of people over the age of 15 have bank accounts. So it's a highly unbanked or underbanked populace. But at the same time, lots of people have cell phones, especially smartphones. I think smartphone penetration is around 70 to 80%. So lots of people have smartphones. Even just regular cell phones is more than 100% of the population, because many people have multiple phones. So everyone has a phone, really, but not everyone has a bank account. So to expand financial services to more people, it makes sense to have kind of a digital payment system that's based on blockchain, based on some kind of retail payment system. Someone just asked if they can get slides post session. Yes, I'm happy to share. So, and I'm going to give some demos too of this system at work. So Bakwang actually is a set of mini applications. So there's a mobile application that users interact with to send and receive money, and then there's applications for banks to use, and we've even done some partnership with Tangem to make a physical cards that you can do signing of transactions on. The project itself started several years ago. We started to get involved in 2017, and the pilot of the system that uses real money was launched last July. And then there's other partners like Deloitte, KPMG, and Attitude that have done different external audits of the system. And working with central banks, of course, is a very complex thing, and security and not making mistakes is a very key thing. For the mobile apps, we designed them to be as simple as possible. So really, they just have 4 simple features. You can send money to other registered users. You can show a QR code that people can send money to. You can scan a QR code to send money to, and you can also deposit money to an existing bank account. So I think this is a good time to actually show the system running. So I'm going to switch over to QuickTime. And go to movies. Let's see. Okay, so should be able to see my phone shortly. It's just a bit resource intensive. Okay, great. So you should be able to see my my phone right now. So this is actually my mobile wallet. So this is actually real money. So we have a Khmer Real at the top, and then we have a US dollar balance, because in Cambodia, people use really both currencies quite frequently. And then we've got the send feature, where you can send to a phone number, or if you know someone's ID, you can send. So I'll just go ahead and send to my friend's ID. And then when you want to send money, you can choose whether to use either Khmer Real as the default, or a US dollar. And I'll just go ahead and send one cent, because this is real money. Maybe put a message like hello, and hit send. And then it hasn't sent the transaction yet, but when I hit confirm, it signs the transaction locally on my phone using my my private key that's stored on the phone, and then it sends it to the backend system, which is using Hyperledger Iroha, and then it's actually already done. So you can see this here. It says success, and yeah, that's about it. You can also receive money using a QR code, and you can enter maybe I want 100 real, and you can scan that and send me some money. And then of course you can do things like this, and scan a QR code, and you can if you happen to be one of the people in Cambodia who has a bank account, you can select one of the banks and type in an account number and send money to a traditional bank account. So I'm going to end the demo of this here, but I will go back and show you one other app later on before we finish today. So yeah, that's it. So it's a really simple system. It's pretty fast. You're able to get transaction finality on the blockchain actually within, you saw it yourself, maybe 2 to 3 seconds. And I'll share these slides for people who want to have more detail. The onboarding process is actually an interesting part too, because to comply with international regulations, we do some onboarding where we scan ID card, and then do some face matching between the face on the ID card and the document, and then liveness detection to make sure that that someone is not putting up a photo or something. And also to help with regulatory compliance, there's a daily limit of some amount of money that the bank that you are associated with can choose. When you, maybe I forgot to mention, when you sign up the first time and create your background account, you actually get to choose one of the banks to be associated with. So if you look at my screen again, you see FTB up in the corner. So Foreign Trade Bank of Cambodia is the bank that that this account is associated with. And so even people without a proper bank account are able to choose one of the banks to be kind of their processor, and then they're able to send and receive money in the Bakong system using just simple verification with a phone number. And then if you go to the bank and do physical in-person KYC, you can raise the limit to be more useful. Okay, in addition, there's also some desktop apps as well. But let's talk a little bit about the architecture. So we created this using a two-tier architecture where the central bank runs the core blockchain system using Hyperledger Iroha. And each commercial bank connects to this system. And then the commercial banks run services that provide access to end users. So my mobile phone application connects to the gateway at FTB, and then from there to the Hyperledger Iroha blockchain. This is just another view of the same architecture where you have commercial banks that run the payment gateways. And then the payment gateway actually connects to a traditional core banking system and different things like that. Everything is standardized using ISO 20022 messaging between the blockchain system and the kind of the traditional banking system. And what's perhaps a little bit interesting is that it's kind of like a token model, because once you move money from an account to the digital money, that's how money kind of enters the system. When you do that, the money becomes tokenized, and you can send it to other accounts as a digital token, similar to how things like Bitcoin work. You can just send these tokens around. And then you can move back to the account-based model, which is what traditional finance uses. And the interface between this is the standard messaging. So it's really quite an interesting hybrid system. And it's been talked about in the news, I think, a fair amount, and even World Economic Forum mentioned it in their report as well this year, which is quite nice. And then, of course, we launched last year. There's about, I think, 600 stores now around the capital and maybe around the country that you can use Bakong at. So you have these little Bakong stickers. But it's still, a new payment system, and it's still has a long way to go, and it hasn't fully launched officially yet. It's still technically a pilot system. So you might ask, why did we use blockchain for this system at all? Because the central bank runs all the nodes. I would say that this is just a way to kind of decentralize the business logic, but at the same time, the infrastructure is a little bit centralized. But even then, the infrastructure is kind of equalizing all the participants. So each commercial bank, has a gateway. They join the system all at an equal level, and even though the central bank runs the core server, the keys, the actual physical keys that you transact with on your phone, only you have them, because the key generation is done on the device, and no one can fake a transaction because you're digitally signing it. So it's a way to kind of create a trust minimized system and give people some measure of control over their own money and their own digital assets. So that's some of the thoughts. And I'll just spend, because this is a talk about Hyperledger Iroha, maybe a couple of minutes before I take questions to talk about some of the features of Iroha that played a role in the creation of the system. So for those who may not know, so Hyperledger Iroha is a platform that we take a very, I would say, bold standpoint, in that we want to limit the attack vectors that you can have in the system. And we do this by instead of having a Turing-complete scripting language, for instance, like Solidity, instead of what we have is a predefined set of commands that you can execute. And we also have a very simple data model that kind of gives you a well-defined scope for the types of things that you deal with in the system and how you can interact. So for example, you have a domain that is just a grouping of some kind of asset or multiple assets and multiple accounts. And an asset is really just a name and a quantity. So it's like a thing or an object in Java. You can represent anything by it. And the semantic meaning has to be given to it by the human who's seeing it and interpreting it. For accounts, we wanted to make everything as easy to do. Well, we wanted to make it really easy to do highly secure applications. And so every account is by default an account that can have multiple signatures. And so what this means is that you can set a threshold. So if you want to have multiple people sign off on a transaction, let's say 3 out of 5 people, like maybe there's a team of people working together, and 3 out of 5 have to sign off on a transaction for it to be valid. This is something that's built into the core system. And you can interact with these different data model properties, like assets, for instance, by just calling these commands. So if you want to register a new asset, you call create asset. If you want to transfer the asset, you transfer the asset. And you can just in a simple and clearly defined way, kind of piece together different things, kind of like putting building blocks together to build a complex structure. There's quite a lot of details, and I could spend an hour talking about it, and I will actually later today. But I would encourage everyone who's interested to kind of take a look at the wiki, and this is kind of like the entry point for all things about Iroha, the Hyperledger wiki, and this has links to the chat, has links to documentation. I think we even have some tutorials to make it kind of easy to get started and to see how things work. And additionally, we are also working on a version 2 of Iroha that we hope will be even more cool and but still at the same time keep our philosophy of making things simple and reducing potential attack vectors. So I encourage people to kind of check out the wiki at first, and then get involved if you're interested. I think we have some time, so I'm happy to take some questions, Julian.
You have questions in the Q&A if you press the Q&A button.
Yeah, the problem with Zoom is...
Okay, maybe I can read out the questions for you.
Okay, I can see them now. Yeah. Okay, there's not so many questions right now, so I'll just go through in order. Let's see. One person wrote about what's a digital CCY? I wasn't sure what it is.
Currency.
Okay. So the transaction in okay. So how's the conversion done from the country's currency to the digital currency? So this is about the Bakong system, and the way it works is there's already accounts that each bank has with the central bank, and each bank can choose to for a portion of their account balance to become a digital account balance just by transferring it to the account. And when you transfer the account to the when you transfer from your traditional account to the digital money account, you get these tokens in your balance, and then you can also, as a bank, you can do the opposite. But the banks are still the intermediaries, and they're the ones receiving these tokens and then giving them to the users. So it's different from things like Google Pay or other types of traditional payment systems, because it's kind of like I think this slide might answer that. Oh, I can't go back for some reason. Oh my gosh. Okay, there. So with things like e-money or other types of traditional payment systems, like if you there's different ways to do this, of course, but typically what you do is you would either pre-charge or pre-authorize some money, and then this is kind of done, and then you go to a store and you issue an instruction to pay the store, and then behind the scenes, what's happening is the payment processor is handling the money, and there's typically a 2 to 4 week settlement time depending on the country and the rules that they have. But there's typically multiple institutions involved in the settlement process, and it takes a few weeks for the store to get money. Whereas in something like a digital central bank currency or this digital retail payments system run by the central bank, the user receives the tokens, and then when they give the tokens to the store already has money, because it's a liability really of the central bank, and so it's the same as cash, like a digital cash. And so the store doesn't have to wait, 4 weeks to use it. They can use this money instantly because it's already in their custody. So I think that's probably answers that. Another person asked, what is the benefit for banks to be a part of this network? So many banks are looking at doing things like increasing digitization and offering mobile banking services, and having a payments backbone system that they can easily connect to that gives them access to digital central bank money allows them to easily make apps for this type of thing. Is there any transaction fee? So, well, the transaction fee, like currently it's in pilot, so there's no fees right now, but in theory, it's very easy to set fees. but that would be up to the central bank and the commercial banks to figure out, what should the fees be, and there's also other ways to subsidize infrastructure than having the user pay. Like, for example, you could use tax money, you could use other types of money. Another person asked a great question. What happens if you lose your phone, basically? How do you restore your account? Because the keys are on your device, you are the keeper of your keys, right? So no one else has them. So if you lose your phone, you lose your keys. But of course, you need a safety net. And that's where using Hyperledger Iroha is really helpful, because Hyperledger Iroha has different permissions. And you can grant permission to your bank to change your keys, basically, to remove your key and add a new key. And that's how we do it in this system. Do you have to keep 2 accounts with the bank, one for? Yeah, actually, that is how it currently is designed. You have 2 different accounts. If you have a bank account at all, we kind of keep a separation between the digital money account in the app and a traditional bank account. Though obviously, this is a back-end distinction, and for front-end user interfaces, banks can unite the 2 if they want to. Another question, is the overall cost of transactions less? Okay, so compared with existing payment systems that are available in Cambodia, at least, the cost of the system for transacting is much less. And I think what's really would be quite a game changer is if you can link multiple central banks together that have systems like this, because then you can do cross-border payments in a much easier and faster way, and much cheaper. So how many transactions per second are possible? So this depends a lot on the number of validators that you have in the system, and then also the capabilities like memory and things like that. And then also, so a lot of different things. We designed, at least the core Hyperledger Iroha part can easily handle between 2,000 to 5,000, depending on the network configuration. Hyperledger Iroha 2, we're looking to make even faster by making the data storage in memory, which is going to be quite a radical change, I think. Do I still have time? Or I've got 2 more questions here, so I'll just finish answering these 2, I guess.
Sure.
Someone wrote, do you see any challenges in scaling the design? Because people still have to visit bank branches. And okay, so this is a great question. So to top up, you're typically giving physical cash to the bank, and then you're getting the tokens. So there is still the need to physically go to some area, at least in the initial phase where you're bootstrapping the user base. Yeah, that's one. The dependence on visiting bank branches still exists, but it's not only banks, but also microfinance institutions and money transmitters who have the ability to change into these tokens. And so there's actually probably thousands of these booths all around the country that people can go to and charge up. So someone is saying that, why would we rewrite version 2 in Rust when C++ is a very proven language? I think Rust is in many ways, because the compiler is very strict. It's very easy to write, I would say, highly secure code in Rust in a shorter time frame. C++ is proven as well, but Rust also is a very, I think, rational choice. It's matured a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. And so I was quite impressed when I started to look at it about a year ago, because it had improved quite a lot. So I don't think there's any major problems as long as the compiler version is kept up to date. But of course, it is something that we keep an eye on a lot. That also being said, a lot of cryptocurrency projects worth hundreds of millions or billions are using Rust for their infrastructure. So it hasn't led to any financial loss yet. So it's probably okay, at least as long as things are updated as needed.
So, Makoto, maybe we'll take further questions on Q&A. Like we can answer them on Q&A section.
Yeah, it sounds good. So I think, yeah, there's lots of good questions, but thanks for your interest. And I will hand over for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Makoto. It was a great presentation, and we're looking forward to have your slides so that we can share it across with our participants.
Yeah,
And
sure.
up next, we have our presentation from Tech Mahindra. We have with us the global leader for blockchain and security from Tech Mahindra, who is Rajesh Dudu. He's going to talk about a billion subscriber use case from telecom domain. So Rajesh, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. Just wanted to check if I'm being heard and the presentation is being seen.
Yes, both are good.
Okay, fantastic. Really happy to have looked at the solution from Soramitsu guys. Coming to the aspect of solving the 1 billion subscriber problem in India, in the last Hyperledger Foundation meeting, which happened at Phoenix, one of the journalists from Forbes had asked me, when will the time come when one can go to a neighborhood shop, pull out a lettuce and say that this particular lettuce is organic just because it has been tracked on blockchain. His point was, in terms of blockchain solutions, while they are great, they have to become very relevant to the people on the street, to a common man. So my answer to him was, I don't know when we'll be able to do that in terms of validating a lettuce, saying that it's organic just because it has been tracked on blockchain. But I had invited that gentleman to come to India. And when he comes to India and picks up a mobile connection and a SIM card, we can tell whether that call is a spam call or not a spam call. And that is happening because of the guidelines from the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, the guidelines called as unsolicited commercial calls and unsolicited commercial communication, primarily to insulate subscribers from spam text and spam calls. And spam text and spam calls is not a problem invented in India alone. It is becoming a global problem. So let's understand how this solution has been conceived and what does this solution do. The problem all started because the telcos were not willing to share information with each other. And from a subscriber's perspective, if we look at the experience of the subscriber, there are two things that the subscriber needs to do. What we call as the consent, and the second one, what we call as preference. So for example, let's say if I said yes to receive communication from Ford Motors, then I need to give my consent to Ford Motors. And then in addition to that, I need to define my preference. My preference would be, I would like to receive communication only from Ford Motors on SUVs. I'm not interested in sedans, number one. Number two, I would set up my preference saying I would like to receive communication from Ford Motors, let's say only on Saturday between 4 to 6 p.m. Now, this consent and the preference information is acquired by the telemarketeers. The Ford will work with one of the telemarketer. Either it is acquired by Ford directly or by the telemarketer. And the telemarketer may belong to, let's say, to Airtel, while the customer who is given consent belongs to, let's say, Idea Vodafone. So now this information earlier was not being translated, as a result of which the regulator has come up with what is called as NCPR, National Consumer Preference Register, and also has come up with another registry called DND, Do Not Disturb Registry. The funny thing is, based on my personal experience, when I went and put my number in the DND register, the next day I got 2x more spam calls. So it doesn't work. So the regulator was very worried. And then the regulator convened a meeting of all the telcos and have asked them what is the issue. The telco said that the calls and the text that are originating from another network, they have no control. They basically enabling the delivery of those calls or delivery of the text. So they said, as far as those calls and the text originate from their network and not from a competitor network or not from an alternate network, they can control. But when it originates from another network, they will not be able to control. As a result of which, we know many of you who are from India, you know this problem. Fortunately, this problem stopped because of COVID lockdown. But when unlock started happening, you would have realized that the spam calls and spam text have started coming back. So let's understand in terms of what does the solution comprise of. So the first thing it was agreed that all of the telco operators will use a distributed ledger. Distributed ledger was recommended because it gives visibility in terms of information and the data on the ledger. The operators were concerned in terms of if they shared their customer information to other competitor network, they were concerned that how will that information be utilized. So with a distributed ledger, you will solve that particular problem. And in addition to that, the telcos as well as the regulator have come up with what is called as a code of practice. The code of practice defines in terms of what each of the telco needs to do, and they basically had various elements, and those elements being preference management, consent management, a process to onboard the stakeholder, and also the process to perform scrubbing. This particular thing was had started almost about 24 months ago as a proof of concept when TRAI had invited Tech Mahindra, Microsoft, and IBM to do a proof of concept. We have demonstrated that this solution works. And then subsequently, after the proof of concept has been validated, TRAI had come up with these regulations, UCC regulations, somewhere in the year 2019. So let me explain to you in terms of how this solution works, both from a text perspective and also from the calls perspective. So there are two main elements out here. One is in terms of what we call as an originating access provider, a telco network from which a call or a text originates, and the other one is called as a terminating access provider, the network on which the call terminates and the text is delivered. Now, let's say, going back to my example of Ford Motors, let's say I am with Airtel, and Ford Motors or their agency is with Vodafone Idea. Now I have given my consent, I have given my preference. This consent and preference information is contained on blockchain, and and cryptography is used from a perspective of asymmetric and symmetric keys. So only the operators are able to read this consent and preference information, and also the brands like Ford, who have acquired this information either directly or through their agency, have access to that information. But that information is off-chain. The information on-chain is not read by them. So now this agency, let's call as ABC. ABC wants to send messages in which I'm one of the person. So this ABC goes to Vodafone Idea because they are affiliated to Vodafone Idea, and they say that we have 100,000 messages to be delivered, and this message has communication on a new line of a SUV. So they have to share the content as well as the header information of that particular message. Header will also contain the number from which the message is delivered. So this headers also have to be pre-registered. And now the telco operator, the Vodafone Idea Limited, receives this particular header information, receives the mobile numbers of these 100,000 customers. And what they do is they do scrubbing on their behalf, and they will ensure whether the information of the mobile numbers and in terms of their consent and their preference tallies with what is being provided by the marketeer. If the information does not tally, I mean the preference does not tally or the consent does not tally, those numbers are excluded from the list. And the numbers which go through the filtering test, they are tokenized. And the message is sent back to the marketeer saying that, hey, you have given us 100,000 numbers. And out of these 100,000 numbers, 10,000 numbers do not tally from a consent and from a preference perspective. As a result of which, you can deliver only 90,000 messages. And here is the token or multiple tokens related to those 90,000 numbers. Now this telemarketer ABC wouldn't know in terms of out of those 100,000 numbers, which are the 90,000 numbers that went through and which are the 10,000 numbers that don't go through. That's primarily to conceal. That's primarily to conceal the identity of the subscriber so that that information is not cross-pollinated and that information is not used to propagate spam calls or spam text. Now, the originating access provider passes on these numbers which are tokenized and the message which is encrypted to the terminating access provider. The terminating access provider receives those tokens, multiple tokens or a single token affiliated to 90,000 numbers that have passed through the filtering test, and they rerun the logic. And once they rerun the logic, and if everything looks okay, then they finally deliver the message. By using this, the regulator as well as telcos anticipate that they will be able to eliminate complete spam calls and spam text. Now, if there is any telco that is violating, earlier the onus was on the telemarketeers. So the telcos used to find the telemarketeers with the impression, under the hope that they will not repeat the offense. But now the regulator had said that the onus is with the telcos. The onus is no more with the telemarketeers. So the telcos, if they do not comply, and if there is a complaint against a particular telco, the telco is supposed to investigate, and then the telco is supposed to reduce the text sending capabilities and the call making capabilities on that particular mobile number or the SIM number to just 2 within the 24 hours of such a complaint has been received. And if the telco is not able to enforce those actions, there are damages and the fines as high as $5,000 per day of delay. And in spite of that, if the telco does not take action, the telco runs the risk of losing their entire license for voice telephony. That is the level of enforcement which has been defined by the regulator. Now let's look at in terms of how this particular solution has been architected. All the telcos are treated as nodes. So individual telcos, each individual telco is treated as a separate node. Some telcos have gone with 2 nodes, and whereas a lot more telcos have gone with only a single node. And each of the telco has their own cloud environment and a deployment. So it is the world's first multi-cloud deployment for Hyperledger Fabric. Some telcos have gone with Azure, some others have gone with IBM Cloud, and some others have gone with Amazon Web Services. And all the telemarketeers will come through their respective telcos. So they will be coming through their respective nodes of the respective telcos. And the regulator also has an observatory node in the network. And what is important is, the audience may have this question. India has about 1.2 billion subscribers, of which 800 million subscribers are active. And on an average, each subscriber gets something like 8 to 10 messages per day. I'm excluding transactional messages. Transactional messages are those which will come when you swipe your card or when you make an online purchase, or a message that is coming from your telco, message coming from your bank. Those are not included. Those do not come under the nature of commercial communication. I'm talking about purely messages that fall under commercial communication. So even if you take those, it will come to about 8 to 10. So 800 million subscribers and 8 to 10 messages per subscriber per day. You can imagine the scale which is there. So to ensure that the TPS is not a deterring factor, this particular solution has been implemented through a combination of off-chain and on-chain. Let me explain that to you. So in terms of, for example, going back to the scenario of Ford Motors sending me a message, in terms of the validation of the consent and the preference is done off-chain. But the fact that that particular activity has been completed successfully is archived on the blockchain. That particular validation is written on blockchain so that it is available for future reference and nobody can manipulate it. This particular implementation is not only purely from a Hyperledger Fabric perspective. This implementation has also involves several operating systems that are integrated with the participating telcos. So there are network systems that have been integrated, the billing systems that have been integrated, there are CRM systems that have been integrated, and there are security systems that have been integrated with this particular blockchain platform or a blockchain network. So ultimately, what is the outcome? The outcome in an ideal scenario, when the solution moves into a full state implementation, full state production, the outcome is there will be zero spam call and there will be zero spam text. That is the promise of the telcos and also the promise of the regulator. From an operational perspective, the benefits include, in terms of course, reduction in a process cycle time, especially for complaints, enhanced transparency, and improved traceability, and also, as I mentioned before, best-in-class security. So from a TechM perspective, we have implemented it for 3 of the telcos. And then we cater to about 500 plus million subscriber base, translating to 50% of the active subscriber base in India. And also we've been fortunate to receive accolades for this particular implementation. Some of them include, even on the global scale, where Microsoft has given us a Microsoft Inspired Runners-Up Award for this implementation. NASSCOM also has recognized this implementation as a game changer implementation. So now, what is the impact of this solution, not only in India, but also on a global scale? So currently, if you see, United States has a different kind of problem. This is robocalls, basically VoIP originated calls, where people are making calls and then propagating scams like IRS related scams. So FCC has come up with a solution called Stir and Shaken. STIR stands for Secure Telephony Identity Register, and SHAKEN stands for Secure Handling of Assorted Information Through Tokens. So they have used cryptography to solve this particular problem, along with a foundation called IETF, Internet Engineering Engineering Foundation. To them, we have now written saying that while you're using cryptography, there is no sharing of information between different operators. So the current solution does not conceive that that AT&T will share the solution with T-Mobile, or I mean, share the information with T-Mobile, or T-Mobile will share the information with Verizon. So now through TRAI, we are talking to FCC to bring in blockchain over there. The good thing is recently when Mr. Trump visited India, the FCC chairman Ajit Pai also visited India along with him, and he made a trip to TRAI primarily to understand how TRAI has come up with a solution to fight the spam text and the spam call problem for 1.2 billion subscribers in India, and they're amenable to learn more in terms of how blockchain can help with regards to their protocols like Stir and Shaken. And we are seeing an increased traction for these solutions in other markets as well, because the telco operators are now considering this as a gold standard, especially to manage the consent information, how they acquire the consent from the customers, and how do they empower their customers to manage their consent and preference information. So that's the solution for you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank
Hi,
you.
Rajesh. Hi, Rajesh. There are a few questions in Q&A.
Yeah.
The first question is, when is this system being launched in India?
Yeah, so the system has gone into production for all the telcos. The dates have been moving a little bit because of few last mile mileage, or the last mile points that need to be tied up. Our anticipation is we are in June now, so probably by September they should go live.
Right. The second question is, will it have any extra cost for customers?
No, there is no cost for the customers, but they're very good monetization opportunities that are there for the telcos. For example, let's say if I give my consent to Ford Motors, I give my consent, let's say, to Hilton, and then I give my consent to some other marketeer or some other product, then the telcos will be able to build a map with regards to in terms of my buying behavior. So they will be able to give that information, upsell that information to the marketeers. So the telcos also have a revenue unlocking opportunities, but at this point of time, the regulator has not approved those models. Since it will trigger additional revenues from the customers, it is anticipated that customers will not be charged anything extra for this solution.
Right. And probably I'll combine two questions now. So both are kind of related. So the question is, how will the feedback to the system be input to? Like, for example, being a customer, can a customer input saying that this particular message which I received as a marketing on my mobile, can I mark it as spam? Or how does the spam calls be identified if it is like anonymous one?
So basically, that's a good question. So if I get a spam call or a spam text, even after implementation of this, I need to log in a complaint with my telco in terms of, as I said earlier, if I'm affiliated with Airtel, I will log that complaint with Airtel, either through a text message or through a call. It's totally up to me. All those channels are available. And once the message has been logged with the telco will start the investigation process, and that complaint is archived on blockchain.
Probably we have time for one more question. What tools are we using for emulating required TPS before going to production?
So as I said, in terms of we are using Elasticsearch that has been used to a significant extent from a scrubbing and from investigation or identifying the record perspective. And basically, we have not invented any new tool per se. We've kind of used as I said before, we've used a combination of on-chain and off-chain scrubbing, and we are using the underlying tools that are available with the telco. So no new tool has been introduced except for Elasticsearch.
Do you have time for more questions?
Yeah, I can take maybe one or two more questions.
So are tele-partner agencies like Ford in your example be node in the blockchain?
No, basically the node in the blockchain is the telco that they are affiliated to. They will come through that particular node.
So other question is, spam callers are moving towards WhatsApp-based text messages. Numerous spam messages are being used WhatsApp. Any ideas on this?
So in terms of that's a good question. So basically, what we have to do is ultimately the WhatsApp is linked to a number, and that number is active with a particular telco, right? In terms of so from that perspective, you should be able to you'll be able to trace back in terms of whose telco the number belongs to, and you will be able to plug in that particular problem through that backward tracing.
Thanks, Rajesh. I guess in the interest of time, we'll take further questions on Q&A portal.
Sure.
We request
Sorry,
you and Aman to.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I need to log off because I have another call, but my colleague Aman is going to be on this session. He'll be happy to answer any new questions that come up.
Great.
Okay, thank you everyone. Pleasure.
Thank you, Tech Mahindra. Now next topic we have from Stezy, there's blockchain platform service to deploy the blockchain solutions. And from the Stezy team, we have Rajan, the co-founder and CEO. Over to you, Rajan. Rajan, you are on mute. Rajan, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sharing my screen.
Okay.
You can see, right?
Yes, I can see.
Right. So as you know, right, Stezy, we have been working on this for the last 18 months or so. So it's a platform as a service. Again, it's a do-it-yourself with several ecosystem tools which have been built on top of it. This helps to create a rapid prototyping and quick production deployment for any use cases across different verticals, right? So I'll just move on. So as you know, building a blockchain is a bit complex, and people don't know which protocol to use, which blockchain to use, when they need to use it and all. So we created a governance structure on all the blockchains. And also, as you know, it is quite expensive to build. You need to have a multiple resources, a complete project team to plan and implement a blockchain solutions, which takes a considerable amount of time planning. And today we don't have that kind of substantial tools which are proven in the market. And maintenance and security, once you incorporate the blockchain, again, is a challenge. So to address this, so we have come out with a platform with a multi-blockchain approach, with a multi-cloud approach. People can host on different clouds, be it on Google Cloud, AWS, or Azure. So you can have multiple protocols. As part of the Hyperledger offering, we go with Solo, Raft, and Kafka protocols. And we also have Ethereum and Quorum and other blockchains. So whichever is feasible for that particular use case, people use it. So we also have both public and private blockchains as well, right? So this helps to optimize the cost and saves time, and quite flexible to choose bit in the blockchain of customer's choice. We have other APIs with around 200 APIs you can directly integrate and build your front end and try to call the functions, right? With high performance and availability, we provide different regions, different geos where you can host by complying with your data protection laws. So both you can go with an on-premise solution as well as on the cloud or Stezy managed. So 3 of the different solutions which you can use it. Right, as I talked about, it's quite cost effective in a development test environment. Moving to production, so people can just explore just as little as $14. People can start with a plan and just try to ramp up as they go with, right? And it's a mix and match of different technologies I talked about. And you can provision your blockchains, create it all under 10 minutes, and just you can deploy it on any of the cloud of your choice. So we support different stages here. So as part of the platform offering, we first, people who understands blockchain, who want to directly go and implement, it's all. So we go and understand the requirement first and create the credentials for them to explore. And we work parallelly with them, co-create value for their customers. All right. And we explore the platform offering a range of easy customized solutions which we have. So I just would be showing few of the screens for the platform. So it's quite easy to build. So we have 3 different ways of doing it, which I would be walking through in the few next screens. So we have API integrations with your existing infrastructure, applications and workflow, be it any kind of discrete applications which you have, this will support. And we help to transform and make this happen at a fastest time possible. Right. Some of the platform offering we have is we offer subscription for all these blockchains, and we do a licensing and white label for the enterprise customers. We have different models where we go have a workflow smart contracts and chain codes where you can create your workflows and you can integrate directly onto the cloud, and you can create your own asserts, and you just can integrate track asserts, trace asserts, transfer asserts. All the things happen through the platform. You can upload smart contracts and deploy it, compile it. And we also have the vulnerability assessment for both chain codes and smart contract. We support both GUI as well as CUI interface for the customers to choose on which one they go with, right? So all the points, all the dots are connected here. So in terms of from the time you create a blockchain to the time you compile and deploy and check for the vulnerabilities, right? We also have a distributed file systems where you don't need to go anywhere to put your files. You can put your files securely, share with your consortium partners, and share with yourself or share with public. There are different options for that to go with. So this is about the platform offering. So this is just some of the screen which I want to share here, right? So we have both public and private blockchains. So this is a dashboard which we have with login information for security purpose. You will have your past logins. You can just see, you can create your API keys here. You can do the API user management here, and your subscriptions, paying of invoices and all will be done here. And you can track on how many smart contracts you have and how many total transactions you're committing here. So the number of blockchains which gets created. And you have my blockchains where you can see what are the blockchains which we have, what is the status of it, what is the health of it. All this will be viewed there. And you can also create multiple smart contracts, in a different kind of smart contracts as well. And also chain codes as well, which we have, right? So this is one of the sample Hyperledger screen which we have to create. You can directly create channels, you can create peers, and you can invite other organizations as part of the platform offering. You can see on which peer, how many peers you are owning it, how many peers other people has it, all right? So all these things, Hyperledger management can be done through this platform. So this, you can instantiate the chain codes, you can deploy the chain codes. Directly you can find out on how many peers you have, the peers getting added to the channels, and you can invite other member peers, you can invite your peers to other members. So all this can be done here. So here you have multiple options for you to create a smart contract. I'm talking with respect to Ethereum and Quorum. So where you can do start from the scratch. So this is available both for Hyperledger as well as other blockchains which we have. So one is the smart contract from scratch. You can create a smart contract without having to write any code. So it's completely codeless. Your codes will be generated as you go and do things, right? You can design smart contract asserts. Asserts can be built and it can be called to your application, or you can create there so that it get replicated onto the platform. So third way of doing is the code builder. You can just create your complete code, upload or deploy, compile, and check for your vulnerabilities, and go and host it on your blockchains which you created. So any kind of customer needs any kind of help, they just need to submit the request on the verticals, what is the kind of help they need. So one of our technical guys will be representing that. So this is some of the areas where you can, your code will be auto-generated, and you can check on the errors and warnings completely. You can download, you can share, and you can, you can do multiple things with this. So this is mostly a developer will be using this tool. So this is one thing. Again, you can check for the vulnerabilities in the chain codes. Both for smart contract and chain codes, you can go and check for the vulnerabilities, and you can just identify it and remove the vulnerabilities. If you see, we have IPS, IPFS, we have all the chain codes. Even for the chain codes, you can do the same kind of things which I talked about in smart contracts. So this is some of the use cases which I want to walk through in terms of doing some major things for our customers, right? One is the supply chain traceability for an agri providers, where you have a provider, you have producer, and you have processing, distribution centers, retailers, and consumers all connecting as part of the consortiums. There are different certifications which would be giving. Even the regulators will also be part of this as well. This helps to create a lot of increased trust and visibility across the supply chain, and it also helps to enhance your supply chain efficiency. Thereby you can save a lot of cost, right? And reduce the legal expenses, as all this will be tracked as part of the consortium, and everybody will have the single source of truth. And it's quite faster, more intelligent payment. And you also come with some kind of AI components as well integrated into this. All right, so there's a proposed solutions. It's like you have manufacturer, you have distributor, retail, farmer, and you have the operator wallet here. So the transactions are committed here. You have government and regulator both, and you have multiple transactions which would be going in, right? So this is the complete consortium partners which are part of the chain. And your manufacturer, your transaction triggers, your smart contracts or the chain codes will be functions, and all the members will have a single source of truth. So our solution is like consortium blockchain between manufacturers, distributors, retailers, farmers, government, and regulators, and transactions are stored in the blockchain to track the product movement. We have an automated chain code smart contracts to bring the trust. Product reviews are done as the transactions in the blockchain. We will have a monitoring of inventories enabled using smart contracts, and TAMP, as you know, so all these features will be added as part of the solution offering, right? So any questions here? Just let me just.
So I see there are a few questions on chat.
Okay,
is it available for Hedera?
I'm sorry? No, it is not yet available.
Can a layman who is not into coding create a blockchain-based product using the solution?
That's the reason we have built this platform for the people who are novice to the blockchain, but still understands blockchain on a higher level, still want to create it. It can be widely used for the people like that. But in fact, what we see is we've been approached by the people who already understands blockchain. But the thing is, they don't have to spend too much of time and cost to implement blockchain solutions across different verticals. So we have implemented for one customer to show a POC kind of a thing in a very, very shortest possible time. So that is the beauty of the platform.
The next question is it available for trials for people to try out?
Yeah, we are offering it. We just ideally it is not open for all. In fact, we reach out to the customers and customer reach out to us. We understand their requirement, then we go and create a user ID for them, and we have a trial version as well.
Yeah, there are a few more questions. Is the supply chain platform available as a SaaS platform?
Yeah, supply chain can be created. Morely, it's like when you create an assert, right? Assert tracking and tracing is one of the easiest use case to build through this platform, because you have an option to create an assert. You can integrate directly with the APIs which we have. So you can connect with your database, right? And that can be seamlessly done.
The next question is with respect to Hyperledger Fabric. So in Stezy, can we import third-party certificate along with self, or is it only self-signed certificate?
No, we can do that. We can do both, self-signed as well as it. We have a different fields where you can upload your certificate directly. Or if you already have it, if you want to use the Fabric certificate, you can do that as well.
Next question is probably how do you see IBM Watson Hyperledger Fabric platform features when compared to this Stezy platform?
I think morely, I just don't want to compare. In fact, it is more of a user experience, right? So we have removed the overall complexity of creating a Fabric things. So it will be much more seamless than the other platforms which we have here, right? We focus more on the user experience part and the ease and convenience part. So we remove all these complexities of what Hyperledger is there and all, right? So those things will be going away. You just can focus on your core domain and just can try to integrate blockchain of your choice.
So probably the next question is, do we have any consortium user in India for using Stezy platform?
Right. So we are working with one of the government here. Okay. So wherein it's we are putting evidences on blockchain with multiple consortium partners.
And the next question would be, who all will be direct competitors for Stezy?
Stezy, there are people, global as well as local players, but we, as a user experience and the kind of ecosystem tools we are not just a node provider. You have several people who do that, but we create an entire ecosystem. If you see, you need not go anywhere out of the platform to host, to instantiate, to compile, to check your security aspects of it, and to integrate. So all this can be done seamlessly. So ours is morely, we are connecting all the dots here, and we provide people both with the CUI and GUI interface.
So the next question is a technical one. So do we need a Kubernetes cluster first, or is it deployed on Kubernetes cluster as part of Stezy?
You're right. Right. We use multiple technologies, in fact. So Kubernetes is one of them.
Thanks. There are a few more questions. Should we take it up?
I can take it up.
Okay. So can we integrate existing application in Stezy?
Yeah, we can do that. So we have been doing that, and I have my contact shared. So probably if I get the contact, so we'll just try to understand the use case, then integration will not take much time.
So is there any concession or special version which educational institutes can use?
Yeah, that we can talk. So we also exploring that options as well. But at this point of time, our focus is more on the enterprise side. But if it is useful for the students to really, go and create, setting up and creating is always a challenge, right? So that if you have that kind of platform available for it, we can talk about it.
Thanks, Rajan. People are also asking about slide deck, which you presented in today's session. And if you can share it with us, we'll share it across on Wiki And also for all the attendees, we will have the recording placed on Hyperledger YouTube channel, and we will send out the links.
Okay, all right. So you can just, so this is the contact information, you can reach out. So in case you need any kind of quick solutions available, platform is live. In fact, it is not open to public. In fact, we are just going and understanding the requirement before we create a user credentials for the people. All right. So any other questions? We can take, how does, so George had some questions, right? Is this available for using? If not, when it is scheduled? So George, it is available to now. Okay. So I think you just can reach out and just send out an email or let us know about it. So we will just try to help you out to get those things done. So we don't deal with, is it linked to public blockchain like Ethereum, which is linked to crypto. So we don't deal with a normal crypto, but however, we have an option for you to, for the public blockchain. So probably you need to have some kind of gas, right? For that, we integrate faucets, and then from there you get some kind of tokens coming in directly.
And is there another one, like, is the integration available with the Oracle Cloud?
No, Oracle Cloud we don't. We have with Google Cloud, AWS, Azure at this time.
Okay. Yeah, you answered the question, Raj.
Is it centralizing thing through blockchain should be distributed? Yes, it is distributed. In fact, if you see all the platforms, I'm answering to Ajay's question. So it is ideally, you can choose between managed Stezy service as well as hosting the node on your on-premise network or on your cloud network. So ideally, your nodes will not be at one place because each of the consortium partners will create a different node by sending out the invite. We have a lot of governance structure around it that you don't find in other places. Just not the node, a lot of governance structures and how each of these partners communicate and how they really can manage the nodes and what is the kind of approvals which you need before you make any kind of changes. So those kind of governance structures are around the platform. What are the challenges which you had till now when you're dealing with the Indian market? So Indian market has become really good. In fact, people understand blockchain better than anyone else, right, across. So now, if you see most of the companies in India, they are really want to adopt new technologies, but they want to understand clearly in terms of why it is needed, what is the value which we are adding for the customers. If we can articulate that well, so probably, we have some good enterprise customers here in India as well. So any other questions which I missed here?
No, Rajan, I guess we answered all the questions. And thank you.
Welcome, Arun. Thank you so much. Have a good day all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rajan.
Thank you. Up next, we have our presentation from Nanyang Technical University. We have Patricia, who is project manager on blockchain solutions, with us today joining from Singapore. Over to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Arun. Give me a second. Let me try to share my screen. So, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the short introduction, but let me give you clarifications. So today I'm going to present to you my thesis that was completed last year in November 2019 that was done with KTH University in Stockholm. Nevertheless, I hope some of the knowledge I'm sharing today could be useful for you and the enterprise to see value in blockchain. And for a student who is writing thesis today, maybe the method I use could give you an idea on how you could pitch the value of blockchain project For example, how you could justify why using a certain consensus model is better than the others, or why transaction finality is essential for one process, but not so much for the others. So before we begin, let me provide a short introduction about myself. So like what Arun said, at the moment, I am the project manager for one of the research projects in the Energy Research Institute at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. But I'm not working on blockchain itself per se for now, just to clarify. And yes, and there are many applicability of blockchain technology in energy area, but today we are not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how blockchain is in the logistic and supply chain in general. Why supply chain? So supply chain is one of the highly valued industry today, especially during the COVID-19 lockdown. As we know, we can see how important having reliable supply chain in the global economy today. Amazon, one of the most valued company today, are essentially a company that provides reliable supply chain. Our products also getting more complex as we no longer source each part of our product from one country. Could be one component from China, the other one from Malaysia, Indonesia, and it put together in Singapore and exported to Europe. You know, so it could be very complex. And consumer getting more critical on the product to buy. Where does it come from? Where does the milk powder come from? Is it more sustainable, or does it come from reliable farm? And they want to know whether the product is truly as what they promise. Logistics become very essential components in supply chain, and not just to ensure reliability of product, but delivering the consumer in the right place, time, condition, etc. Basically the key points of logistics. So this slide summarizes what I'm trying to say earlier. Logistics services is one of the activities in supply chain management, and information technology links all the activities together to ensure efficient process. But how blockchain could take part in information technology layer? First, we need to understand what is blockchain technology and how logistic industry KPI are. Second, we need to look at the business perspective. We have to understand the maturity of blockchain technology as a solution in the market. And we can do that by looking at the various use cases available and how is their development. And here I propose a new way to evaluate maturity of technologies, look at the regulation as well as consumer. Lastly, we need to see what's the possible future, as we know that the only constant we have today is change. Therefore, we need to have a quick tool to evaluate the alignment between technology and future scenarios. But don't worry, in this presentation, due to time constraint, I'm only going to focus on part one of my thesis, which is how to match blockchain platform characteristic in the market today with the key performance of logistics services. So let's begin. And how do I do that? So based on my study last year, there are several key traits of blockchain technology across several blockchain platforms. These are also what makes blockchain unique compared to other database technologies. This is non-exhaustive list, but I try to highlight what are the key differentiators of blockchain, which are smart contract, consensus model, cryptography, and network environment. On the other side, I also look at the logistics services and logistics service quality. So we know there are a variety of network environment, as what the previous speakers have mentioned. You know, there are public, private, and something in between. And here I simplify and categorize them into public and closed, data accessibility, and type of access. And it shows that as the network is more closed, the access more restricted, and therefore reduce diversity in the user's type. Restricted network could help companies that wish to adopt blockchain into their process, but it still retain the user participation and therefore increase the feel of security. This brings to another characteristic of blockchain that could increase the security of the network. Another point of blockchain is asymmetric key cryptography, which I think the first presenter mentioned. There's public and private key, which means that you need to have two keys to encrypt and decrypt. That means that although the information can be located in the public domain, only a certain individual could see it or could access the information. And cryptography hash function means regardless of the input line, it always come out with the same digit of output and it cannot be replicated or reversed. That means you cannot decrypt the process. It's more challenging to decrypt the process. And given these two characteristics, blockchain could improve the way information is being kept. And so blockchain is divided into blockchain and nodes. I think we all know about this. And information of transaction is kept in the block of unique number per platform, and each block contains hash function of the previous block. Therefore, you cannot change the sequence of the block as the hash function will change, and this can be detected as abnormality, which is very different from normal database. We know how the information being kept, but which information should be kept in all blockchain nodes? This is where the consensus models of variety of blockchain platform comes in. All nodes have to agree on how to agree with each other. Whether proof of work or by the shares in the system or just by time limitation, the more complex the consensus model, the longer the time needed, more resources, and arguably more secure and suitable for public network or process that need public participation instead of limited range of users. While simpler consensus model could be more suitable for permission network, whereby the user have been screened in the way. And on the right, we are just some example of differentiators between various platforms to help you see which one could be more suitable blockchain platform for your process. Of course, we know Hyperledger has variety of platform inside. The idea of Hyperledger, in my understanding, feel free to correct me, but it's to put everything under one roof and make things easier for developers to build a solution on top of it. You can choose different type of network, permission models, tools, and libraries. And I believe some of our speakers today also shown some examples how this could be done in different applications. So lastly, smart contract, which is essentially digitization of contract clause. But what makes it different? It is possibly to connect digital assets in the contract and combine with better security and better way to cap information. Blockchain could automate transaction from end to end. It means provide assurance for parties in the transaction process. One of the use case on blockchain and logistics is using IoT by taking shipment end to end. And this is especially useful for perishable products. Let's say there is a shipment of fresh produce from Asia to Europe. And however, the air conditioning system on board break down along the way and the product perish. So instead of waiting until the product arrives at the port, waiting for clearance, waiting for custom clearance, which we know that takes a long time, and waiting for take your turn to open the cargo, and instead of waiting for all of this, the IoT sensors tagged to the goods could alert all stakeholders immediately. The producer could start preparing the backup shipment. The recipient could be informed the replacement shipment, when the replacement shipment will arrive, and the shipment can be scheduled and insurance company could kick in. And previously, this could involve multiple database, as the company will have their own system. But blockchain could be an added value in this case, because the transaction could be placed in the public domain, but only a certain party could access this information. That means no one party owns the informations, and given the right key, blockchain could integrate with various internal systems each component has, then therefore given value to the information technology layers that supply chain company might have engaged today. So I've explained about blockchain, but how this could actually impact logistics services. So firstly, the demand for logistics services had evolved in the past decades. Consumers are getting more spoiled with choice of products and demanding more precision in delivery service, especially with online shopping has increased in volume and variety these days. You can literally buy anything in internet. That given a challenge for logistic company to provide better service, and that brings creation of wider range of logistics service company. From the beginning, it was only 1 PL or first party logistic to 4 PL or fourth party logistic. Essentially, it means 4 PL's companies provide more complex value-added services to consumer. Typically, it means the company is capable to give better information to users on when, where, how, condition of the product, during and at the delivery point, how it looked like, whether the box are being dented or the box are in the perfect condition, meaning you can provide better justification for manufacturer, supplier, brand owner that the product is delivered in time and in good condition. It will give peace of mind for all stakeholders if there is any return claim or insurance claim of the products. Faster transaction and financial flow, better business for everyone. But what is the key value of logistic services? But there are many ways to define LSQ. My study found these parameters, which have been compared against various studies. But of course, this is a quantitative studies. There is many ways to justify this process. So this is only one perspective you could look at it. From the order placement, there are specific parameters, which is personal contact quality, order release quantity, information quality, ordering procedures. And on the receipt side, we have the order accuracy, order condition, order quality, which at the end reflects to timeliness, order discrepancy handling, and at the end, all related to customer satisfactions. So all these parameters at one point or another impact customer satisfaction in different levels, which is there is extensive study about it, but I'm not going to touch into that today. So essentially this study argues that there are several key parameters importance for every stage of logistics services, from order placement, receipt to satisfactions. But how do we match this to blockchain technology? So we know that blockchain offer value to improve the way information is being kept. As I mentioned before, that we have different parameters of blockchains. When you cap certain information in blockchains, it is arguably more secure. It can be verified because it plays in the public domain. It is traceable when anything is being changed in between. and therefore it is trustable. And some paper argue that it is near to real time. Of course, this depends on the type of network you choose, the type of consensus model you choose, and the type of process you want to solve. And therefore, it is easier to access. Again, it depends on the type of network you utilize for your process. On top of that, because of the smart contract option, blockchain also improved the way contract is being automated, as it is capable to verify who is the participants in the system in the permission blockchains. And of course, with different type of consensus models. One consensus model like proof of work takes more time and more resources, but it could be placed in a public domain. But if you choose less complex consensus models and place it in the permission domain, then it'll be much faster to reach transaction finality. Therefore, stakeholders could have better confidence with the technology to make transaction more binding in the process, because you can tag your assets. Of course, this is like the previous speakers has mentioned, is an option today. And I'm not talking about the assets of Bitcoin only, but it could be different type of assets. Like we know that different country has try to tag their asset to become a digital assets. I know that in Dubai, they have some effort to do this. I believe in Singapore as well. And how you create a digital assets on top of your currency. And since there's a way we can screen the users, we can define the process clearer and more scrutinizable by the public, it is arguably more justified for, and is more assuring for the stakeholders to make the contract automated and tangible to the assets. And on the other side, we have a range of logistic service quality. And based on this, the benefits of logistic can be classified into trackability, traceability, and direct transaction. Trackability means that it could improve timeliness, order quality, and order condition. Because the information is more secure, verifiable, and trustable, therefore it is more trackable. And it is the user, the shipping company, for example, will be able to provide better information on the time of delivery, on the order quality and order conditions. And because the information is a public domain, so everybody could scrutinize this, and therefore the information kept in the blockchain could be more trusted in the sense, rather than when you kept the data in your own personal database and only you can access the system. Traceability in this case is an improved way, as blockchain could capture information beyond where, when, or how the product is being delivered. But also in some cases that I've seen, that the product, as the product moves along the supply chain, more information can be captured inside. For example, like in the case of in the Walmart and turkey farmer, if I'm not wrong, whereby they could tag the certificate of the farm and condition of the farm into a certain transaction in the blockchain network, and therefore the users could just scan a barcode and see where does the turkey come from, what was the farm condition, what is the history of the farm, and whether it's satisfied into their personal diet. And on the other case of, for example, in the high value goods like diamond, you can tag different type of value into the blockchain, like the carat, clarity, the cut, where was the diamond from, which country it is, and whether is it, and especially the issue of blood diamond makes things people more concerned whether they are buying a product that is has created damage to the environment or to the people or to the society in general. And they could also tag along the previous owner. If they, because this is high value goods, as you sell to the second owners, they want to know what is the value of this diamond before they purchase it. And because we put this information in the public domain, it feels more trusted in a way that rather than when a company or a party hold it, and you know, that is when there's a change to the system, you will never know about it. When there's a change in data, that only that company owns it. So in the way that when you put it in the blockchain, it is more prone to scrutiny, and therefore, you know, it kind of more trusted in the way. Yes, and lastly, in the direct transactions, it helps to improve the management of order discrepancy, handling, and accuracy. For example, a shipment of fish from Nordic to Asia, does the product being treated well from the farm to the table? Has it at some point being treated beyond its acceptable range of environment, whether like what I mentioned earlier, the air conditioning broke down and during the shipment and nobody knows about it, and apparently it is not to the grade of quality that the consumer expected. Of course, this application of this requires IoT product in the way, a combination of IoT in the system. But if this could be implemented, it will improve the entire process. As we know that blockchain, we could tag the asset of the stakeholders inside. And therefore, if there is any discrepancy in the contract, or there is a certain parameters in the contract is being triggered, they can execute, for example, informing the relevant suppliers that, okay, there's a problem with the shipment could alert, or they could alert directly the insurance company, there's a problem with the shipment, and the replacement shipment could be prepared, it could be scheduled, and as everybody is involved or informed in a shorter time frame, the replacement good could be prepared and consumer could be alerted on the change of delivery date. And we can manage the customer in the face of the logistic company. We can help manage consumer expectation in this way, because we know the information much faster, and we avoid the customer to be dissatisfied with the product. Yeah, and that helps to achieve better logistics service quality. So we have come to the end of my presentation. I hope my presentation is useful to help you decide when to adopt blockchain technologies, which parties should be involved, and how to convince relevant stakeholders in the process. And I'll be happy to take any questions, and looking forward to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. So it was good informative session, how we can use the blockchain in logistics supply chains. So let me check. So I think there's no Q&A, and yeah. Any
There is a
specific use
question.
case for warehouse management? Some question. Patricia, one question. Any use case for warehouse management?
Yes, I mean, warehouse. So what I'm blockchain is a kind of a tools to help people to collaborate, I will say, because I feel that with the availability of data in the public domains, the more stakeholders involved in the process will give more value to blockchain. For example, in use case in the warehouse, if the warehouse company would like to implement or to participate in the blockchain network, they could see who are the stakeholders in their system. You know, they could be involved with the vendors, you know, whether the vendors is implementing a blockchain system in the process, and whether, you know, are they required to fulfill a certain KPI in their warehouse? Are they a specific warehouse, for example, cold storage warehouse, and they have to keep goods in certain ways, and they have to be responsible this condition to their consumer. So they could look at the environment or their what do they want to achieve? You know, what they want to improve? What is their KPI, I guess, in the project management term, that if they are responsible to ensure goods are kept in certain ways, and they have to look at different vendors. For example, are they users of their warehouse for perishable goods? Are they warehouse for which type of consumers? Because I feel warehouse could be one of the actors or one of the stakeholders in the blockchain network. It could be a warehouse for H&M, for example, and H&M is implementing a blockchain into their sustainability to improve their sustainability justification process. Warehouse could be involved as part of their stakeholders. Yeah, I hope I answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for the session. So the next topic we have from Knowledge Society. They have their royalty program using blockchain, and we have Ravi Vasgam from the team. Yeah, Ravi, over to you.
Hi, I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, Ravi, you're audible.
Yeah, it's a great honor to be part of this chapter. A special thanks to Hyperledger India team and all the participants on your precious time here. And thank you for giving an opportunity to talk about our loyalty platform. I'm Ravi Vasagam, a co-founder of KS Loyalty Platform. Here I would like to share a small story. Why do we choose a loyalty platform with the blockchain technology? As you all know that we are binded with some loyalty programs with different businesses in our day-to-day life. For years, we were purchasing goods and branded companies. They offered loyalty points for their customers, but it was in multiple wallet pattern. Each company owned their own wallets and of course their terms too. Did hit our minds and we became impatient at one point in time by finding a difficulty in either managing or maybe in the redemption process. That impatient mind remained restless for so many days, and we evolved our ideas with this blockchain technology. As we all know that loyalty programs are usually structured with a long-term marketing effort and incentives. by which it brings the customers with loyal buying behavior and also motivates them to purchase frequently. I have a small question here. Are the customers provided with the quality and quantity services? At the same time, our customers remain loyal to the businesses. Not this, not that, right? It goes like a chicken egg story. Since some known to be SME companies, but actually retailers made loyalty program as a thumb rule and struggled in meeting up the customer needs. There was an overall challenge across the manufacturers with no discriminations. Now, our impatient mind, as said earlier, wanted to find a solution. That's how our KS loyalty platform is born with the capability to address all these open issues. Actually, loyalty platform consists a number of benefits for both customers and SMEs. Now, let's see how we're going to address some of these open issues. As you see, we have a high diminishing value from the existing loyalty programs. Merchants are very limited for redemptions. Accumulated points expired by unusability. Points are not transferable, and sometimes it's a non-extendable liability. Low redemption rates and high cost to maintain and retain for the SMEs. So we, the customers, we make the customers to earn and grow points in our ecosystem. KS loyalty points are not only give the loyalty points, but also a cryptocurrency. Let's see how we making it. Thus, our KS loyalty platform got its life to overcome all the issues of traditional customer loyalty program. Our platform constructed with consensus to maintain the network, which means it is not centrally controlled by single entity or any. Hence, this is the stepping stone towards our more democratic internet in the pointing system. Business can easily get connected with the partners and customers across the world instantly with the fast, secure, and efficient networks. Our platform will make it easier on board the SMEs or SMBs and use to scale their business values. On the other hand, small business can scale up with enterprise to take advantage of their growth economy. Right. So blockchain technology is not only affordable to store and share the reward points, but also it fosters the consumer's loyalty network in a sensitive way and also retain the balances in the global network. That is, it typically refers to the distributed and transparent ledger, which holds an immutable data in encrypted and secure way to ensure an unaltered transactions. The platform offers a marketplace allowing customers to trade or purchase points if the band participates. The technology makes a real-time process by creating an unique business opportunities. Individuals or the companies who want to participate in a communal system usually will not trust each other or any third party to operate the system single-handedly. Let's see how our ecosystem is built upon. A customer going for shopping after participating in our platform will earn the loyalty points from our partner in the network. Also, he can also leverage a crypto exchange. A customer can grow his accumulated points until he has a demand for the redemptions. So here, the points that he earned is not going to sleep in his own wallet. He have an option to convert that into our crypto exchange. He can also have to donate, transfer, or gift his earned points to his friends and family within the network. Our platform will solve many requirements from traditional loyalty system by connecting a B2B and B2C from tracking the product of multiple programs in one or different networks. In the future, we also plan that our customers can receive and redeem the loyalty points within the ecosystem that are interoperable across the multiple programs anywhere and anytime. With the architecture, I would like to explain how it has been built upon. We have used a Hyperledger fabric and Explorer for the transactional views. Our contracts are binded with public and private channels with a master-child chain code combinations for our pointing system. Currently, we are in the discussions to have a commodity-based stablecoins for the crypto exchange. Since we are in the alpha stage, this architecture has been behind here. I'll see small use cases. We launched with a small use cases in the initial days that a loyalty program allows you to earn the free thank you points for every day who join our network, and it still continues there. And we also started one small use cases. We can also encourage the young ones for achieving something and reward or recognize his achievements by gifting a points as a piggy bank for them. Later part, they can use the crypto exchange when it's live. Another use case that we would like to share, the business can create a deeper relationship with the help of our data, machine learning, by connecting the customers and retain the brand promise from them. The retailers can start leverage immediately our platform to reward their customer purchases. That's ongoing. So this is our beta app that's available in the Google Play Store. So it allows you to earn the points every day. Some features I would like to share here that we are planning out. And also, if you look at the one, join hands to donate for any fundraising or donate for the two relief funds, right? So I would like to share a small story that I've been engaged here. One day, I have been engaged by my school friends that one of our schoolmates is suffering from financial crisis due to COVID-19 season. As a team, we tried to extend our support and plan to raise funds. That's the moment I were introduced our IT platform, and people started recognizing, and it served a great purpose. And you know that it's a heartwarming moment for me as they recognized our project. Also, we could help the person who is close to us. I feel it's worth sharing with you all. The rest, we have a lot of AI analyticals, and we can have a unified crypto wallets. And that's all from my side. Thank you. I'm open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, Ravi. If on attendees, do we have more questions? Please feel free to ask them in the chat or the Q&A portal. So Ravi, we will collect the presentation slide deck from you, and we'll share it across to our wiki page. I see a question on Q&A. Which providers do you support currently?
No,
you mean the client side, or you mean to say, I didn't understand the question.
No, I think this question for Tech Mahindra, because that about Geo and that one.
Oh, okay.
Geo.
Okay. Thank you then.
Thank you, Ravi. So we had, today's session was really great. We had all our speakers, the presentation materials were good. And we thank you to all, we thank all the speakers for joining and taking out time and then sharing your experiences.
Yeah, Ravi, there is one question. How this concept is different than debit and credit card reward points?
All right. So currently, if you look, debit card and credit card transactions, they give their own network and they give the points. And that's why, as I said, those are following the traditional loyalty system. Your points are getting expired. You cannot transfer the points to your friends and families, right? There is non-extendability time periods.
Okay.
And your points are getting diminished values.
Okay. Yeah, and there is one question from Dolly. Is there a special version for training to educational institute?
I'm not sure about it, but we can convert that, like you say, if somebody was achieving something, as I said, a kids program, if they are completing a lesson, if they're completing homework or something like that, yes, we can give some thank you points that you're earning from everyday transactions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, and continue.
Right. We thank all the speakers. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you all. Thank you to all the speakers. Next week we have further few more topics lined up for our blockchain stories this year, and we look forward to welcoming you in the next week's event.
Yeah, thank you all.